Once upon a time, in a quiet village nestled at the foot of the Catskill Mountains, there lived a kind-hearted but lazy man named Rip Van Winkle. Rip was loved by all for his cheerful nature and willingness to help with everyone else's chores, except his own. His wife, Dame Van Winkle, was always on his case, scolding him for neglecting his farm and spending his days wandering the woods or lounging at the local tavern. One fine autumn afternoon, after a particularly loud quarrel with Dame Van Winkle, Rip decided to escape the nagging and take a walk into the mountains. The air was cool and crisp, the kind that stirred the soul and made one forget all troubles. Rip's loyal dog, Wolf, trotted by his side as they ventured deeper into the forest than ever before. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Rip stumbled upon a strange sight. In a clearing, a group of men in peculiar old-fashioned clothing were playing a game of ninepins. The sound of their bowling echoed like thunder through the mountains. The men were silent, their faces grave, but they gestured for Rip to join them. Curious and without hesitation, Rip approached. One of the men handed him a jug filled with an unusual drink. Rip took a sip, then another. The drink was sweet and heavy, and before long, he felt an irresistible drowsiness. He leaned back against a rock, closed his eyes, and drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep. When Rip awoke, the sun was shining brightly, and the clearing was empty. The strange men, their game, and even Wolf were gone. Confused, Rip got up and stretched. He noticed his joints felt stiff, his beard unusually long, and his clothes worn as if they'd been left out in the elements. Shrugging off his discomfort, he began walking back to the village. But as he entered the familiar streets, Rip felt a strange unease. The houses looked different, newer somehow, and the people, none of whom he recognized, gave him odd, suspicious glances. Rip reached his own home, only to find it abandoned and crumbling. A group of children playing nearby stopped to stare at him. One of them, a boy with curious eyes, whispered, "That's the old man from the mountains." Rip made his way to the tavern, hoping for some clarity. Inside, the crowd was lively, but the faces were unfamiliar. The sign above the bar now read the Union Hotel, and there was a portrait of George Washington where King George III's likeness had once hung. "What is this place?" Rip asked, his voice shaking. An old man turned to him with a furrowed brow. "Where have you been, friend? This is the Union Hotel, and we're a free nation now." Rip's heart sank as he learned that 20 years had passed since he drank from the strange jug in the mountains. The Revolutionary War had come and gone, and everything he once knew had changed. His wife had passed, his friends had either grown old or died, and his children were now adults who barely remembered their father. Though Rip was overwhelmed with sorrow, the villagers, fascinated by his story of the enchanted drink and the mysterious men, welcomed him warmly. He became something of a legend, a living tale of the strange and unexplainable. Rip settled into his old ways, helping where he could and spending his days sharing his extraordinary story with anyone who would listen. And while the world around him had changed, Rip Van Winkle remained the same, an old soul content to live out his days in the gentle peace of the Catskill Mountains, forever caught between the past and the present.